Did you know that Brisk has a new feature that really focuses in on the learners? Casey and I take a look. AI powered education is next. Casey and I are here to talk about AI as usual. And as usual, it deals with pedagogy and practice and turning it into praxis. And we have spoken a great deal about Brisk. We've shown some things with Brisk, and it is a really wonderful tool because when you're looking for great um, material quickly and assistance and you're not sure where to go, it is a great place because it does offer so many like links and categories and drop downs, and every single thing with standards, everything is there. It's already there for you. But we have somewhat missed a little bit of what is new, and that is a student boost. So Casey and I are going to share a little bit of how to use this AI student boost in Brisk, along with citing sources and credibility. We all need to do more of that. So Casey, why don't you tell us a little bit about and show us Brisk and this new tool?
Yes, I'd love to talk about Brisk. You know that I have numerous times on here, and I will shamelessly plug for this company only because we've bought into it as a school district, and so I know how important it is that we kind of fulfill what we intended to do with this product and this tool. And so I think it's important that I share with anybody who's listening the ways that this works. So what I'm going to do is have Brisk create a resource that I think I might be able to use with my students as far as a current topic in our class is doing research. How do we find great research that we know is credible? And so we always talk about, does the author have the authority, or does the organization have the authority to produce this work or publish this work? What sort of credentials do they have? I also have, students look at how current it is. Has there been a lot of movement on the topic since this was published? And does this work account for the conversation that it's currently existing in? Many other factors. So what I'm going to do is have Brisk create a resource, and then I'm going to use that resource to have it create a boost activity. Boost activities in Brisk are for students. What it does is it creates an opportunity for students to interact and get immediate feedback, which we know is wonderful. But as the single teacher in the room of 28 to 30 kids, it's pretty hard to do. So I'm going to share my screen. So you should be able to see my Brisk icon pop up here on the Google Doc. I went ahead and put in a prompt here. I wanted Brisk to create a resource. Notice how I have so many cool tools I can do. I just clicked on resource. I can also click on something else, and it would literally make whatever I want. I put in this prompt that says, create a resource for students to effectively cite sources and check for credibility, authority, objectivity, and relevancy. And this is going to be used in my college setting, so I'm going to keep it at university, but I could totally make this adaptable for any grade level as soon as we start showing kids how to find sources. This is something that they probably should do. I'm going to keep it in English because I can change it into Spanish later if I need to for my Spanish speaking students. I'm going to hit Brisket. It's going to make this resource right in this document for me. I love the speed at which it generates this. It always sets it up really nicely too, like formatting wise. It gives a nice heading with separation in each of the sections. I can go back and then edit this to whatever I want. So what I want to do here now is review the resource and make sure that I'm checking its credibility too, right? That's part of this process, is to be the human in the loop. What's really cool here is you can see it reminds users to use the 80-20 rule. Sandra and I have talked about this quite a few times on here. 80% of the work is being done by AI. That's great. That's your administrative assistant. It's doing that work. But now I need to be the professional who spends the 20% of the time looking it over and making sure that it's accurate. So you'll notice how the pop-up, as soon as it's done, it says, hey, rate this response, give us some things that you might want to do with it. You can literally say, hey, add in an example paragraph where you explain the authority on a source. I can ask it to do a lot of things, but one of the coolest features is this Boost It. So give students access to the activity in a safe, monitored, AI-powered workspace. So that's the next thing that I want to do. But I want you to know that I can do that at a different time too. I don't have to do it immediately. So I can kind of scan through this document and see how it looks. If this were me in my own classroom during my prep, I would spend a good amount of time reviewing this resource and editing it to make it what I need for my classroom. But for the sake of right now, I'm going to say this is going to work. So I'm going to click my Brisk button again. I'm going to do the Boost student activity, and it's going to pop up a new web page. So this is an extension that I have already as a part of my Brisk Boost platform. So it's going to pop up with this really great like kind of set of pre-programmed tools. So there's the engagement tools where we're interacting with students. I've got a tutor option, personalized support. I can use this as a way to create a hook to really get students involved right away. This is a character chatbot, which works really well if you're going to be in a literature course and you have a narrative that you want the students to interact with.
And
There's
Casey,
a lot of features.
Casey, you are still the teacher creating what kind of activity boosting here is going to happen, right? This is you creating this. Okay.
Yeah. So what I have to do as a teacher is decide, like, what is my purpose, or what do I want the students to do? How do I want this activity work? So I have that document that has the information. I don't want to just necessarily give my students a handout and say, good luck to you, right? Use this handout. I instead want them to interact with the concepts of that handout and maybe get some practice before I hold them accountable for their sources. So you set the academic context. Again, I'm going to go all the way up to university. I could add in specific standards. It does have standards for every state in here, but I'm going to ignore that for now. I'm going to do this tutor option and then create an activity. What Brisk is doing right now is it's reading the document that I'm using, and it is determining what the learning objectives should be based on that resource. In addition to that, it's also creating its own role that it should play. So I get to modify this as I go. So I have students will be able to effectively cite sources and assess their credibility by, and it has the whole list of objectives, 4 of them. Correctly apply at least one major citation style. What I can do is say, I want to focus on APA, right?
Yep.
So correctly apply, maybe I say APA in their writing. Evaluating sources based on three key criteria: authority, objectivity, and relevancy. Identify 3 practical steps for assessing it and demonstrating the ability to compare and contrast. That's exactly what I want students to do. Those are the skills they need to possess. So now what do I want Brisk to do? I want them to guide students through the process of effective source citation and credibility assessment, right? They're a guide. That's what a tutor does best. They provide examples of proper citations in the different styles. So I'm going to say, provide examples of citations in APA style when asked. Prompt students to evaluate sources by asking about the author credentials, publication, reputation, all of that information that I was sharing earlier. If the students struggle, break down the concepts into smaller components to provide analogies, help illustrate, encourage critical thinking. All of the things that I want to be able to sit down with my students one-on-one and do, but I don't have time to. So now I can modify this, as you can see that I did. I'm going to go ahead and say that this is ready. I want you to see what options you have after that. So I could keep that resource available for students to go back and forth to, which I think is really great in a tutor session. They would have resources available to them anyway. I can make them see the learning objectives so that they know exactly what they're supposed to be achieving as they go through this. And then a link that would open up in a new tab, so maybe they could save that resource for themselves later. Then I click on this. Notice how the students have the resource on the left. There's this chat box that pops up here. Review the learning objectives and then let's go. You're ready. So you start typing. As soon as Brisk opens this up, it says, hey there, it's great to meet you. I'd love to help you learn more about effective source citation and credibility. To get started, could you tell me which citation style you're most familiar with? APA. Great choice. APA is widely used in many fields. Let's practice it a bit. Can you tell me how you would cite a book in APA format? Don't worry if you're not sure. We can work through it together. So thinking about all different levels of where students are at, I might be able to go to this resource and I might be able to say, grab something from in here that I could take, or I could just say, I think I need the author, last name, and year of publication, right? You're on the right track. The author's last name and year of publication indeed are parts of it. Notice how as soon as I answered that and it reviewed my answer, I started to move along this bar. I know that I'm getting closer to meeting those objectives as a student who's working through this. So I'm on the right track. It gives me the verbal feedback that says, you're on the right track. That's so cool. And I love that. Can you think of any other elements that you might need? Again, the student can go back over here, can review the resource to try to find those. This conversation can go back and forth as long as the students are making those objectives, meeting those things. What's really great, and I'm not going to show you right now on the screen because I don't want you to accidentally see some of my own students' work, but as the teacher, I have the ability to go back and review the students' chat logs. I can see the conversations they had. It will put a red flag on any time the student deviates from the conversation that they're supposed to be having. For example, they accidentally go off on a tangent and they start talking about something that's not relevant. It's going to flag it. Or maybe the student is kind of upset with the system and they're not given the right answer. So they might, say something naughty in the chat. It's going to notify me of that as the teacher so I can stay in control of that. I will see how many students have met the objectives. I will see how many have partially met them and how many of them have not. I'll also see how many have been engaged. So this is such a cool feature for me as a teacher, but also more importantly, I think for the students. And this is what I've been hearing from my students in my classroom is that they appreciate that they get a chance to test out the information that they're learning in class and that it's not just automatically into an assessment. And it's immediate feedback. They don't have to wait for me to read 30 papers and get that information back to them. They're learning in the here and the now.
And we know that learners really need, like you just said, they want feedback right away. They want to know where they're at. They want to know, how can they keep going? But having that immediate and that interactive, and it really is kind of in their realm. They like this kind of format as well with that, and again, we can't do that one-on-one all the time with all these details. This allows us to have the one-on-one that we really need with those learners who really need us face-to-face, really working with them. But this allows everyone to be working at their own pace. And so often what we talk about in education anymore is that you absolutely can't just do everything like whole class, like there's no personalization. This is wonderful personalization. This is what we definitely need to have.
Yeah. So I could show you more things today. Otherwise, I just really want to remind you that Brisk is a really cool tool that has a lot of opportunities for teachers and now for students. And I just think that is what we're asking for here. Sandra and I talk about how, Brisk and other AI tools need to be an assistant for teachers and a tutor for students. And I just know that if you keep that mentality in mind, then the content will come to you. You'll have an easier time making the resources for your students and really just kind of getting through the standards and the rigor of your classroom setting in a way that is feasible and doable.
Yeah. And as we close here, I just think too that one of the things you said is like you asked your learners what they thought of it, and there you're getting responses that they like it. I mean, just finding out from what do they think about it as it like in a team approach, like is this the best thing that we should be doing, in our process.
And they are honest. You know, a couple of kids said, "Oh, it asked me a couple of the things, you know, too many times," and I got frustrated because I felt like I was having to say the same thing. And you know, when I go back and look at their chat log, it says, "Oh, you know what? You were kind of getting this repeat question, or it kept insisting that you come back and revisit an idea because you were missing this maybe one key element, and that was one of the objectives." Right? And you're like, "Oh, okay." So the frustration is also an opportunity for people to learn too. And I think that we need to pay attention to that instead of being like, "Oh, they just don't want to do it. You know, they just don't want to do this work." But really, sometimes that frustration is where the best learning can happen.
Well, Casey, thanks for showing us the student boost on Brisk. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me.